Everyone, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you and welcome to the last 2024 Town of Oakville Committee Council recommendation meeting that we have here. We have no consent items, and we have a regret. Sorry, I apologize. We have regrets from Councillor Longo. Does anyone have any pecuniary interest to declare? Councillor Knoll?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening. I wanted to declare pecuniary interest on the Appendix A with respect to item B, and that is with respect to the additional funding for the BIAs. And I will also declare it for C because there is some tacit involvement between the two of those matters. And the reason being is that I own a business which is within the boundaries of the Kerr Street BIA and thus would benefit from any decision made, and so I will be sitting out that vote.
Thank you very much for that, and I'm sure the clerk will notice that and get you the proper documentation to fill out afterwards. Thank you very much for that. Council members, we have no consent items or confidential consent items, which leads us to the crux of the matter tonight, and that is our recommendations to pass on to the mayor for the 2024 budgets before us. So at this point, what I would like to do is pass the virtual microphone over to our Deputy Treasurer, Jonathan Vanderhayden, who's going to go over what recommendations Council has brought forward, and we'll have a discussion on those. What we will do at that point is we will work through those, and we will straw poll, solicit from Council sort of thumbs up, thumbs down on what recommendations we would like to put forward to the mayor. And then after that, we will vote on the entirety of those measures that have been approved as Council recommendations. So without further ado, Jonathan, the microphone is all yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair O'Meara, and thank you, members of Budget Committee. I just wanted to kick things off this evening, just touch on a couple of matters. So we circulated previously to this meeting an updated Appendix A with the recommendations that have been provided to me today. I do hope I've captured your wording appropriately, but feel free to amend those items that will be before you that the clerk will show on screen momentarily. Hopefully they are an accurate reflection for you. As part of that, I have included in brackets what the impact of any item would be on the overall tax levy increase. And Dalabar and I also have our spreadsheet that we use every year that we can calculate any other additions or changes should you need that information. We're here to help you navigate through that. I also wanted to remind the committee that the Halton Region Police budget was recently announced, and that came in higher than the region of Halton was expecting. That is part of the region of Halton's overall budget. So the figure that they have is different than the one that has previously been provided. It currently means that we are sitting at 4.8% for the town's overall tax increase based on what was provided to you earlier. And that's because the region's share has gone up to 5.39%. I should note that the region has not presented their budget yet, so that number may come down. They may be able to mitigate some of that, but I wanted to make sure that all members of the committee were aware of that information before we started tonight's meeting. So those are the only opening remarks that I had, Chair O'Meara. I can turn it back to you and to the clerk to put up that draft Appendix A for committee to consider.
Well, that would be great, yeah, if we don't mind. And I guess we'll just sort of go through this sort of recommendation or position by position. If the clerk can bring that up, that would be great. Sorry, Your Worship, I see your hands up. I've got two screens going on me because I'm in touch with the clerk on the other screen and it's causing me chaos. So, okay, I've got it now. Please, Your Worship, if you'd like to speak, go right ahead.
Thank you. I only interrupt to ask the Commissioner Fu if on her windrow option of up to 1,100 driveways, would she be able to tell us price at which we could offer that would have no tax impact? Or what would be the price if we did it at cost recovery? And yeah, know there's a lot of desire to have some kind of expansion of Windrow, and that might be a way without, it's because, you know, overall, our unanimous budget direction was get to 4.5, and we got a ways to go to get there. So is Commissioner Fu able to answer that question? And if not, let's just carry on. Thanks very much.
No, I appreciate that, Robert. And maybe if we can just give Commissioner Fu the heads up that that's coming, if you don't mind, I'd like to sort of just go through these items one by one. That question will be coming, and I know they're all interrelated. At one point, we're going to have a holistic conversation on them, but maybe if we can give Commissioner Fu some time on that, I'd like to just go right on to item A, which again is now not on my screen, but I believe it was the 110,000 for an increase. Yeah, so I'm just going to work through it. Thank you very much, Mayor. Commissioner Fu, we will get to that, and I've noted that. So the first item here, item A, is an increase of 110,000 or 0.02 increase the overtax tax levy to the municipal grants provided by the town, with an additional 10,000 made available to each BIA for their events, to a total of 20,000, and 20,000 made available to each ward without BIA support, to support existing or new town run events in these wards, and that staff be requested to report back on a policy and or procedure to administer this program and how this relates to our special event strategy. So this was brought forward by Councillor Adams. So at this time, Councillor Adams, I'd be happy to recognize you.
Thanks very much. You'll see there's 3 A, B, and C there. And so I think I'd like to, if it's okay with you, to speak to the entire issue here, as opposed to just this 1A, because they're all related. My view is, in the circumstance where we're facing a 4.8% overall increase, we shouldn't be doing any of these, actually. But if there's a desire by council to add additional money to the BIAs for their events, then in fairness, we really should be supporting events across town. And so that's why I put forward 1A. I'm not actually sure why my name got attached to 1B. It shouldn't be, but in any case, so that's my position. And so my preference is actually not to move any of these and to rather hold the line and work towards getting us back to 4.5%. Which you'll see is 1F farther down here.
Thank you very much, Councillor Adams. And I understand the interconnectedness of a number of these here. So I guess at this time I'd ask if there's any other members of council who want to speak to 1A. I believe that's the best way to do this, and I understand we'll go through B and C, but Councillor Chisholm, I'm recognizing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Some comments with respect to, because it is. Sorry. Feedback.
If everybody can make sure they're muted, and any devices you might have near your computer or speakers are muted as well, that can help with the feedback there.
All right, can you hear me? Great, okay. 1A, B, and C, they're all interconnected some way with respect to the distribution of the dollars for the events. I just want to clarify that this is not about wards, the wards getting money. It's not a ward for ward operation. This is more of these events that we have at unused Kerr Street are major events. These are town-wide events that we draw from all of Oakville, and also the merchants also put into this to invest in this too through their tax levy, BIA tax levy. So there is an investment on both sides of the coin with respect to the town and to the BIAs and the merchants. So I'm in favor of the BIAs getting the increase, but again, we've proven ourselves with our events and to support these events as major events within those wards, especially with Bronte and downtown and Kerr Street. I really believe that we need to increase this because of major impacts throughout our costs related to equipment and events and performances and so forth. So it is a major event. It's not about awards and adding more events, local neighborhood events, but rather supporting the major events that we have now. And we're under great duress with respect to financial situations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chisholm. Councillor Haslett.
Thank you, through you, Chair O'Meara. So I fully understand that there is another need, which is the special event strategy and supporting things within the ward. However, I see this as very specific to the collective partnership we have with the BIAs. It is through the BIAs that we all mutually benefit. Every resident across town benefits from the investment and the partnerships the BIAs have with the town. And it really is a fact that at $10,000, we have not put inflation on that number. And yet we choose to put inflation on all the other elements that are within this budget and have done so regularly. So to me, it's living by how we manage our own costs as well, recognizing that inflation does impact the ability to supply and provide services. But just to give you some context, because Bronte sent in some information, the downtown BIA had, for Oakville residents in particular, almost 1.9 million visits last year. And they ran over, by the time we get through Hometown Holiday, 113 events. And so they contribute greatly. And let's face it, the money actually comes back to the town because we're just paying for the permits and for, to try and get services to make sure we can safely adhere to all the protocols that we have put in place. So I don't see this as about wards. I think hopefully we all have a broader picture that we all benefit from the success, and someday there's going to be a BIA in the north, and hopefully we all rally to support them.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Elgar.
Thank you, through you, Chair O'Meara. I must say the presentation really opened up my eyes the other night when one of the presenters presented paid duty costs were $5,723, EMS was $800, Town of Oakville event cost was $4,202, and the road allowance $704. It came to over $11,429, and I thought that was a bit of an eye opener that part of our 10,000, and that was just an event he mentioned. So I guess I have to support giving the extra 10,000 to the 3 BIAs, because I think like downtown Oakville, the Kerr and the Bronte, I think it makes that's what makes Oakville Oakville. I understand what Councillor Adams wants to put money in the other wards, and I think we have to look at that. But I guess I'm in favor of the 30,000 on the 1B. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Councillor Nanda.
Thank you, Chair O'Meara. I had a question because Councillor Che and I were sort of going through this, but could someone give us a number of what exactly we support, how much total we support for BIA? Do we give them more than 10,000 from, or is everything coming out of their own pocket? Do they have anything in our budget yearly?
Sure, we'll ask staff if they can speak to that. Jonathan, if you put you on the spot, but such is the eve.
Through you, Chair O'Meara. So we currently have $30,000 in our municipal grants, part of a rec and culture budget that we give to the BIAs $10,000 each. So that is what is currently in there as well for them already.
So so it's what currently they said, and they just want 10,000 extra on top of the 30,000.
That was, through your, Chair O'Meara, that was my understanding from the requests the other night.
Okay. So just want to get clarification on that. I think what we're looking at in terms of getting a little bit support and what we were saying with, I think you put it under 1C, which was adding maybe 10,000 to each of the other wards that doesn't have a BIA. We are seeing a lot of uptick in our own areas where we're being asked to do bigger events that would likely cost more money. And we're trying to incorporate all of Oakville as well. So some of the events that, although we might be doing it in some of our areas, I guess it would come out to being like, maybe if we had a little bit more money in our pocket, we could do larger events that could incorporate more residents from Oakville. Again, seeing just the way Oakville is growing, it's growing faster. And our residents are looking for more events to, to gather together, to have the community together. So I don't dispel that the BIA, they've done a great job. I have been living in Oakville for a very long time, and I do agree. I've always taken the kids downtown to the events that now, as I understand it, is events that the BIA has put together. So very much appreciate that. That's why I think we were hoping in 1C that an addition could just go to each of the separate wards, which would be a total of 40,000 for if now in the next year we were able to do some bigger events that would allow more Oakville residents to be a part of as well.
Thank you, Councillor Nanda. So Councillor Elgar, your hand's gonna go down unless you want to speak again, or, okay. So I've got Councillor Adams and Councillor Chisholm, but I'm foreshadowing a tautological argument that I think we're gonna go around and around here because we've got a few things on the plate here, and I'm gonna look to Councillor Adams if he's okay with what I would like to do, because this came from him. But what I think I'm hearing from the committee here is there's two discussions. There's a discussion on whether we fund events throughout the town by ward, and then there's a vote will have to happen on that, and then there's going to be a vote on whether we fund BIA events separately, and then not to forget, Councillor Adams also has a vote at the end of this that could nullify all of that on or not, depending on what the mayor decides, on a 4.5. So I think we've got three things that we've got to decide here, and I'm trying my best to figure out the best order with which to decide those. So, Councillor Adams, I'm going to look to you to see if you are okay with if we vote on the A first, which is a townwide ward funding structure, and see how that goes. And then based upon that vote, either we go on to the BIA funded vote, and then depending on how that goes, then we go on to the F. Is that okay? Or do you think, is there a better way that you'd like me to go about doing that?
I guess that's fine. It's up to you, Chair. I only had my hand up to note that if people didn't recognize it, all the events that have happened in North Oakville have also had the issues associated with having to fund permit fees, funding, bringing in picnic tables, and all these other things, and they're super expensive. I'm sure that Councillor Knoll has experienced that in the organizing of the events in his ward. We've certainly noted in our ward, and so those expenses are significant, and we're trying to build community events, and so that's the reasoning behind it.
Absolutely, and I appreciate that, and I think I appreciate those comments, and I think, again, as we heard, we're going to hear in the event strategy how we're going to start dealing with that on a town-wide basis here. So, Councillor Chisholm, before I go to you, what I'd like to do is try and confine this conversation then to the ward-wide funding model, which is proposed in A. And if anybody has anything to speak to that, then we can at least move forward or behind on one of those, but at least we can make some progress here. So, Councillor Chisholm, if you'd like to speak to the town-wide issue of funding, and then we can go from there.
Yes, I think I can couch it in the town-wide. And I understand events are very important, and hopefully in 2024, the special event strategy will help us get through this maze of difficulties with events, especially when events that we're having in the municipality, our representation and from the town, they reflect the town. It's not an issue, but more that understanding that Councillor Nav mentioned extra. It's not about extra. It's about just maintaining what we have and supplying a quality events. It's just because of the increase in everything that's happened, and I think Doug Sams articulated that in his presentation. So it's more of a survival mode rather than looking for extra events or extra on top of that. So it's basically just to maintain the service levels and maintain a good service level of events within the community of Oakville. So I'll just leave it at that. Overall, I understand and appreciate across the board. But again, we've got 3 BIAs that are heavily invested in special events, and I'd like to see that happen in that nature. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chisholm. Mayor Burton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure we have all the information we need. I would be interested to know what would be the impact to the BIA levy if they added $10,000 to their levy. I like to remember that BIAs only exist for the purpose of using their own levy to provide themselves the resources that the town doesn't provide them. So that the town can try to focus on everybody rather than just one sector. I wonder if Jonathan could do that math for us. Thank you.
Through you, Chair O'Meara. If you give me a couple of minutes here, I can try to pull that for you quickly.
Well, unless a hand pops up, you're going to have a short couple of minutes. No, that's okay. I appreciate that. Yeah, if you can take a couple of minutes, that would be great to do that. Are there any other questions come? So before we get to Jonathan's response, I'm not sure, Councillor Adams, if you're a mover of this, or if I know you said kind of, I don't really want any of these three things to go forward. So I'm not sure whether you were moving this recommendation or not, but. Okay, sorry.
Let's get the new information.
Okay. Jonathan, do you have that quickly?
So through you, Chair O'Meara, what I can do is I actually have the levies from, I don't have the 2023 levies in front of me, but I do have the 2022 levies. So just for awareness for the committee, the Bronte BIA tax levy for 2022 was $358,000. Kerr Village was $419,000, and the downtown BIA was $1.1 million. So that's the context of what this would mean to their budgets. That's their tax. Those are their tax levy amounts. They have other revenue sources beyond those, but those are their tax levy amounts. I hope that helps the committee.
Mayor Burton, that was your request. Is that what you needed?
That's helpful to me. I would also ask if Mr. Vanderheiden could tell us what would be the number if we were to just bring forward and adjusting for inflation, the $10,000 to 2024. Would it be 20,000? I know the other night, one of our colleagues suggested during that discussion that perhaps might be an approach.
Through you, Chair O'Meara, I don't have that information in front of me, but again, if you give us a couple of minutes, we can try to calculate what that would be. I just want to, as part of that, I believe this was from 2014. Is that when these started? I'm seeing some nods. So if you give us a couple of minutes, we can try to calculate that for you.
We can do that. Thank you very much, Jonathan. I know it's hard on the spot there. So, and just as a point of clarification, that the clerk messaged me that part of this process and the recommendations that Councillor Adams has moved this in the form that we have right now, so he can withdraw it should he feel obliged to do that. But otherwise, that we will go from there. So, I guess, Councillor Dudek, thank you for jumping in.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I think maybe we're going at this a little backwards. To my way of thinking, why don't we address whether we want to increase beyond what we had hoped to hold to? And that may factor in a better sense of, are we willing to budge on anything? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, if we're facing this increase from the police and we want to hold firm as best we can to minimize any tax increase for our residents, maybe we have to start there first.
That's a very valid point, Councillor Dudek, and I mean we took these recommendations sort of as they came in and listed them as they came in. So I'm not averse to that. I think that might help to expedite sort of the conversations going on forward here. But again, I'm trying to do this as deliberatively as possible. So let me mull that for a second here. I've got Councillor Giddings and Councillor Adams, and then I'll see how best we can move forward here. Councillor Giddings.
Thank you, Chair. Further to Councillor Dudek's comments in terms of perhaps not looking at increases, if we're going to go down that road, which I'm quite happy with, we should probably also open up some of the other areas to possible decreases, just so we can have a fulsome discussion on a number of topics.
That's true. You know, but we did ask everyone to bring in all their information to tonight, right? And I don't think it's fair on staff to start saying, hey, what would a decrease in this department or that program look like? Because they do not have that information right here, and we are on a time crunch. So I think we may have sort of put, we're in a bit of a box right now, and we're working with what's in front of us. Again, at the end of the day, this is just recommendations to the mayor. The mayor is going to decide how he wants to present this budget. I've had great conversations with the mayor about wanting to bring forward council's recommendations as the budget, which is fine. It doesn't mean to say we're out of time tonight, and the mayor's not out of time tomorrow. He will have that time, and there's also another public delegation opportunity when the mayor brings forward his budget. So we are not at a finite timeline right now, though it feels like that for this committee, which I understand, but I just wanted to put that out there, and I hear your comments, Councillor Giddings, and I'm going to hear from Councillor Adams.
Well, if I could, Mr. Chair, I appreciate the feedback, and while we're on a commercial break now, waiting for staff to crunch some numbers, I've received a few texts from residents that are watching, wondering if the mayor could just detail, this is the first year of going through this process like this, and they're just going, what are the next steps? So maybe that would be a good commercial break.
We've gone through that a few times. I don't mind going through it again. With that, I can see very quickly how this can become a bit of a free-for-all in this meeting, and I'm really going to try my best to herd all the cats here into focusing on what is before us. And so what I would like to do very much is to hear from Councillor Adams when Deputy Treasurer Vanderheyden puts his hand up and has information for us. We'll proceed that way, and well, look at that! Imagine that, and then we can start to narrow down what our process is to get through this tonight, because I really don't want to meander through arguments and counter arguments and stuff that where it becomes a tautological argument again. So Councillor Adams,
Councillor O'Meara, I've heard what my colleagues have said, and I'm going to suggest a slightly different method of managing things, and that is I'm going to move 1F, which is that the 2024 overall property tax increase not exceed 4.5%. And by doing that, I hope we can help make a decision about where we're trying to head overall, and maybe that will help in some of these other decisions.
Well, I appreciate that. Technically, I have a motion from you for 1A right now.
No, you don't have that motion. I'm giving you a motion for 1F.
Okay, so when I read that out and it was from you, the way that this was working was that I was reading through an order of motions put forward by councillors. That's why the names are added at the bottom here. So those were motions put forward by councilors sent to staff and they posted them as motions. So I addressed that, but I might have
So
to get help from the
In
clerk.
our procedure, you need a motion. I'm giving you a motion to approve 1F at the moment.
Okay, well. Fair enough. I'm hearing something different from the clerk, so I'm
Okay.
in between. Mayor Burton, of your years of experience, if you would like to help in, jump in and help me here, that would be great.
Mr. Chair, you are procedurally correct. You have a motion, you accepted a motion on the floor through a process that was established, without objection, which is people are going to send them in. You, as chair, get to choose which order you put the motions. As chair, I like to check and see if everybody's okay when I change the order. And normally we all cooperate and work like that. I just point out that the treasurer may have a number that could help us here.
Okay, no, and I appreciate that. So what I'm gonna do, Councillor Adams, all you've got to do is just say, I'd like to withdraw 1A, the motion, and then we'll happy to receive 1F, which is fine. Can we just hear from our deputy treasurer, and then I'll come right back to you if that's okay. Okay, Jonathan, thank you.
Through you, Chair O'Meara. So in response to the question from Mayor Burton, $10,000 from 2014 would equate to about $12,600 in 2023. So I add a little bit more for the 2024 budget, but hopefully that gives you a bit of an understanding of where that would be at this point.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Councillor Nanda, I apologize. I'm just going to go back to Councillor Adams here on this issue, and we'll.
Okay, I'm going to withdraw 1A.
Okay.
And ask that we approve a inflationary increase of, I can't remember what the number was, 2,000 and something.
Sorry, Councillor Adams, you've got me a bit confused. You were
Oh.
talking about item F, which was that the 2024 overall property tax increase not exceed 4.5. Are you doing something different?
I'll move 1F.
Okay.
How about that?
Okay, that makes sense. So we're now going to be discussing 1F, which is, again, just to read for anyone that might not have it up in front of you, that the 2024 overall property tax increase not exceed 4.5%, moved by Councillor Adams. I know it's difficult to sort of stay in the confines of where we are, but if we can try and speak to the motion that's on the floor right now, the 4.5% increase, that would be great. Councillor Nanda, I'm recognizing you.
Sorry, I had a question previous to that and then we didn't get, and it was a clarification on something Mayor Burton said earlier. Can I quickly get a clarification from Jonathan, or?
Is it a procedural issue, a procedural question?
No, it's a
Okay.
question that Mayor Burton had asked.
Okay, well, unfortunately, I'm gonna park that
Okay.
for a minute if it's not.
I'll get that clarification after.
Okay,
then,
thank you
that's
very
fine.
much. I apologize for that. I believe Councillor Duddick and then Councillor Elgar I had.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I fully support that we hold firm at 4.5. End of discussion.
Thank you for that. Councillor Elgar.
Yes, can staff, thank you, through you, Chair O'Meara. Can staff please advise me how many $1,000 we have to cut the budget to go from 4.8%, which I understand we stand at right now, to 4.5%? And that's without any additions coming in. So how many 100,000 is that what we have to look at going forward? And let's get this really out on the table and get it sorted out.
Thank you, Councillor Elgar, for that. I know staff are going to need another bit of a time to figure that out, or unless you're going to pull a miracle, Jonathan. Do you happen to know that?
Through you, Chair O'Meara. So that would ballpark be about $1.7 million different from what we previously presented to accommodate that. And again, that is assuming that there's no mitigation at the regional level.
Is that everything, Councillor Elgar? Are you okay with that?
So yeah, so now we have to look for 1.7 million, and based on what Jonathan said and what I understand our chair at Halton Regional Police Board has said, I think the police are going to get what they asked for. So I don't see a lot of cuts coming at the region. So I think we have to go with what Jonathan said right now. Unless we do something, we're going to be sitting at 4.8% overall for the residents of Oakville. So I'm pleased with how quickly he was able to do that. I figured he could, because everything I see, we're going the other way with what we're adding. So, but it looks like we should be going with the 1.7, looking more in details at something. This is going to be an interesting evening.
Sorry, Councilor McNeese.
Thank you. Through you, Chair O'Meara. Based on some of the provincial announcements today, how do we go about factoring that into the budget? You know, I heard about an infrastructure bank, some offsets for water infrastructure and things like that. Is that anything we can take into consideration? I mean, I know it's hot off the press, but just wondering to staff how we factor that into our 2024 budget.
I'm happy to turn that over to staff. I can just say in my short time and not as anywhere remotely close to some of my council colleagues sitting on this one here, you can't factor that in, unfortunately. You can just do retroactive stuff, but and maybe stuff ends up in surplus, which is always a good thing. But I will turn it over to Commissioner Sully or Jonathan to give the formal answer on that one.
Through you, Chair O'Meara, we do have to look into the details of that, but my understanding is that would support capital infrastructure, not the operating budget.
Thank you.
Councillor Chisholm.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It seems to be a moot point here with respect to where we're heading with this, and we're going to have a lot of conversation. It might mean nothing with respect to the motion. We have a motion from Councillor Adams at a 4.5, but we're at we have council at 4.8. Now these additions, I would assume, are above the 4.8. Is that correct? Just confirmation on that, please.
Yeah, Jonathan, I'd assume so. I don't want to answer for staff.
Through you, Mayor Burton, yes, it is. It would be an addition, so it would increase that 4.8.
Okay, maybe I'm simplifying this, folks, but if what we've got in front of us and what's happening at the region, the police, and also what we're looking at here, putting us over 4.8, and then we're looking at a motion of 4.5. Any of these things that we're talking about, to me, is not going to happen. So why are we continue on having discussions about these, knowing full well we're at the end what's going to happen?
Well, thank you, Councilor. That's why we're having a discussion on this right now, so we don't go to those other issues and discuss them, and we'll just figure this out right now, I think is the point. So I guess at this point I'd ask, are there any other councillors who would like to discuss or have any other information with regards to item 1F? Councillor Hazlitt-Theo.
Thank you, through you, Chair O'Meara. The difficulty with what we're faced with is, we've marched along through our meetings, and most of us, while we may have had questions and reservations about some of the staff requests, we certainly weren't. It certainly wasn't clear that the removal of those would be a debate tonight. I just want to make sure I heard clearly. It was 1.7 million is the difference we have to make up. Is that correct? Okay. So I guess I have a couple questions, one to Jonathan, one to Nancy, either or. What is the reserve level that we could draw from, or that you would recommend we could draw from, to support the making up that 1.7 million?
Through you, Chair O'Meara, we do have a policy that we don't use reserves, one-time funding, to fund ongoing expenditures. One thing, you're giving recommendations to the mayor. You may want to just, if it's the committee's choice or decision to make that recommendation to the mayor, then the mayor would go away and work, I think, with staff on how we would come up with the reductions required to bring that budget in line, which would then be presented to council for consideration.
Okay, so your polite suggestion is that the staff would work with the mayor, come back, and within the mayor's recommendation, we would see if we can achieve the 4.5 if he chooses to provide that as his budget. Is that correct?
That is an option. It is up to the mayor how he would like to approach it.
Okay, so we can't pull from reserve funds for operating. Can we? Are there any other revenue streams that that could assist us?
So our policy is to not use reserves for ongoing expenses. We will go away and look at, are there any things in the budget where we could pull money in if they're not permanent expenses? So we will do that. Staff looked very hard when they were preparing the budget for all revenue sources that we could take advantage of. We will have a look at that too, but I'm not sure that there is much there. I do see the mayor's hand up though. I shouldn't, not the chair, I apologize. But we would look at what the recommendation staff would have on how to bring it down.
So I guess my follow-up question, and then I'll step back. There were budgets that far exceeded 4.5 in the staff's recommendations. One of which was the mayor and council's budget exceeded 4.5. So is the motion on the floor? It's the overall property tax increase would be at 4.5, not that each department would have to go back and be tasked to come in. Is that
the motion is the overall budget at 4.5.
Well, I think we need to lead by example on that one, but thank you for clarifying some of my questions.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Mayor Burton.
Yeah, staff, if the way through the challenge that the police have thrown us, and we all support, I mean, we're all aware of the increase in visitor crime, let me call it, that has been causing break-ins and car thefts and so on. And so we certainly, I think I speak for all of us when I say we support strengthening the police ability to protect us. And it would be my intention to, having listened to everything that council has advised me so far, personally and in these meetings, never mind resolutions, work with staff to prioritize all of the increases and to with as little pain as possible, bring us down to the 4.5 that council unanimously endorsed before I set the budget direction. I wanted at every step of this budget to bring to you what you would endorse before I bring it to you, if you see what I mean, so that we could do this with as much harmony and collegiality as possible. Our colleague, Councillor Hazlitt-Deal, made a suggestion the other day about at least adjusting for inflation to $10,000, and that I was surprised when that didn't turn into an item on this list, and that's why I asked for that information. I hear the need. I supported the 2014 grant, despite my overall belief that the BIAs have their own levy and they ought to use that. And so I would undertake to find the ability to make them whole on the inflation level on the 10,000. If that's congenial, if people would be satisfied with that. Council can, of course, amend the budget that I bring to add or take away things. And it was my hope with the process of all that we set out on, with all of its consultation steps, that we would have a more of a kumbaya budget. So that's what I think we should do, given the financial surprise that we have. And I hope that we can work together happily to do that.
Thank you, Your Worship. And again, I mean, you've been a part of this whole process. It has not been without the mayor, and you've heard the comments and the wishes and the desires of delegates and of council colleagues and of the consultations everybody's done. So should things change at the region and for whatever reason we were left with extra somehow, I'm sure you understand sort of the desires of council on where that would be spent and vice versa as well. So I appreciate those comments. So again, so at this point I'd ask, are there any more comments on item 1F moved by Councillor Adams? Seeing none, I don't know how to do this. Are there any objections to item 1F? Seeing none, that carries. Thank you very much, council colleagues. So with regards to that then, and I might look to the clerk on this, I'm not sure where that puts us with regards to the rest of the items, other than the fact that I don't believe they may be necessary. Andrea or Jonathan, if you want to chime in to make sure I'm okay on that one, or if I'm misreading that. Councillor Elgar, I see you've got your hand up there. Fire away.
No, I'd just be willing to refer what we have on here, the other 1A through E and 2A and B, back to the mayor, and let him work with staff to come up with what we're going with 4.5 is what as a council we want, and he will work through it.
No, and I appreciate that as we often as we often do with staff, where we give them direction. They don't need any formal motion for direction. And they get it. I think the mayor's got that tonight. He's seen the list, he's got it, and I'm confident with that. I hope council colleagues are as well.
Yeah, okay, I'm fine. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mayor.
a motion to refer them to me would be in order, and that would, you do need to dispose of them in some way, and that would.
Fair enough. Prior to doing that, Councillor Knoll and Councillor Knoll, I'll recognize you first there.
Thank you. Just to clarify, so you're suggesting that the capital items be referred back as well, because they don't have a direct impact on the tax rate. So I'm curious if we should just address those, since they won't have an impact on the ultimate, whether it's 4.8 or 4.5.
I might look to staff for to help me on a response on that one there.
Through you, Chair O'Meara. So there are two capital requests that are also up for consideration this evening, and Councillor Knoll is correct. They don't have a direct impact on the tax levy. They obviously would require the use of likely reserve funding for them, but they wouldn't have a direct impact on the tax levy.
Okay, so sorry, I'm going. So Councillor Knoll, with your indulgence, if I could get a motion to refer the other items in the operating budget back to the mayor. Councillor Dudek, I see your hand up. Are there any objections to that? Okay, seeing none, then with due regard, with that behind us, perhaps we can move on to item 2A then, and I guess Councillor Knoll, that would be over to you.
Sure, thank you. And I imagine that Councillor Chisholm might want to chime in on this one as well, since this is a partnership deal, trying to push this one through. But as I gave the impassioned plea at our last meeting about the danger that we face by not addressing this issue and losing a major chunk of Oakville's history if we don't act quickly on this. I'm aware that just this past week there was a request to the library for microfiche files, which was the old way we used to do this. And in fact, those files are suffering from vinegar syndrome and probably not usable without extensive remediation. So, I mean, we need to be very cautious about protecting our history because history is important. History, learning from the past is important, and preserving that history in a town like Oakville is critical. So we've sharpened our pencils, and we've gone away and gone to staff, and we've worked out a plan here that I think is more palatable. It still is a multi-year project. It's not the full financial package up front, but the bulk of it is the scanning piece, which is at the cost of $313,500. And then the remaining portions would happen in 24 and 25, sorry, 25 and 26. But they're much smaller pieces, can probably be handled out of the envelope that the library gets through a matter of course. The arrangement that we've made is we realize that we have quite a bit of money sitting in our development fund from fundraising. A big chunk of it is not accessible because they're bequests and vested funds, but there's enough cash without breaking the bank that we can put up $213,500 of fundraising money into this project and ask the town for $100,000 of capital, which would come out of reserves for this as a one-time contribution to this important project. We do not currently at this time have any specific projects other than this one that fundraising money is earmarked for. We've been collecting it for, I won't say a rainy day, but certainly for a viable project. And if there's ever a viable project, this is it. I've undertaken to poll our board when this concept has come up, and it's unanimous that our board supports this initiative. And if council and the mayor were to accept this recommendation, then at our next board meeting, we would approve the expenditure of the $213,000. Based on straw vote, it will be a unanimous approval. Once again, this doesn't impact the tax levy this year. It would come out of reserves. And in my opinion, and I think anybody that cares about the history of our community, and the evolution of our community from the early days right through to today, particularly in this period, this really important period where the archives are really very, very thin in Oakville, from the post-war period right through till I guess 80s. These archives really dictate the history of this community and record the history of this community, and they really need to be preserved before they're literally dust. And that's the risk we're at right now. They've been sitting around so long that they're at risk of actually disappearing into the ether. So I would appreciate your support on this, and I would duly move item 2A.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Councillor Nolan. Keep pushing the mute button, nothing happens. Councillor Giddings.
Thank you, Chair. A question through you to Councillor Knoll. I appreciate the additional source of funding being from OPL. You had talked about the work being done in 25, 26, I believe. So would that be 50K per year for 2 years, or is it the 100K all up front?
Depends on the timing of, through you, Mr. Chair. It depends on the timing of the scanning project. It's a lot of work, and it may not be done in time to really move to the next phase, but it would likely be over 2 years. Because the project really is a 3-year project, whether it's funded upfront or funded over the course of 3 years. I think the point I want to make, though, is that it is highly likely that in the next 2 years, the smaller portion, because this is the bulk of it, the smaller portion could likely be funded through the existing library, or the library envelope that's provided annually, or the board could also consider looking at raising additional funds, because our goal would be certainly to replace this money through a specific fundraising initiative to cover those costs. So it's I do not think at this point in time, I don't anticipate we'd be coming back to council next year to be asking for a bump up to cover the balance of the cost. This is really a one-time thing at this rate.
Thank you very much, Councillor Noel. Are there any other questions on this item? Seeing none, it's moved by Councillor Noel. Are there any objections? Seeing none, that passes. Congratulations, Councillor Noel.
Thank you very much, everybody. We really appreciate it.
Item number 2 in the capital plan we have here, and I believe Councillor McNeese, your name is listed here. So I'll pass the mic to you.
Thank you, Chair O'Meara. So this is a capital request for Brawny Market Square. This was a space that was long envisioned with the public to be, I guess, our version of Town Square in downtown, or the square that Kerr Village has as well. However, it's largely incomplete. It's sort of not what was promised, not what the community had hoped, not functional in the way that it is. I think we had a delegate yesterday or the day before kind of say it's, you know, barren concrete that hasn't sort of found itself or found its purpose. So we've sort of taken a philosophy of placemaking that has worked in other places like Kitchener and Brampton when they've been in similar situations. And I think we've got a relatively small ask to help figure out, you know, what are those sort of capital pieces that can be in position to make this a more inviting and favorable and vibrant space that the public can use. Right now, people just walk right through it and don't have a reason to do anything there or spend some time there. So it's I think a relatively small capital ask. I think we've got in mind a way of being very efficient on it, so that this space that's supposed to be our public square for Bronte Village can actually find itself. So that's the purpose of this request for placemaking for Bronte Market Square.
Thank you very much, Councillor Denise. Any questions or comments on this item? Councillor Dudek.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. I wholeheartedly agree. Going through Bronte, it does look like a wasteland with that concrete there. And given the amount of development that's going to be going on in that immediate area, it's crucial that they have a gathering space. Currently, right now, I think your only source is the waterfront, and that's usually for events. What I think you're looking for is something so that the community can gather on a regular basis. And I know that we're very grateful for not only Cowan Square, but also the West Side Square down where we are. And I know the same thing for downtown Oakville. So I think it's quite crucial to have that. So fully support it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dudek. Councillor Giddings, then Councillor Elgar.
Thank you very much, Chair. A question for Councillor McNeice. That $35,000, is that for a study? Is it for trying to pretty up the area? Just curious what that would be used for.
So I mean, the way we're envisioning it, it's sort of a light, quick, cheap approach. So part of that is a process of working with the public to identify things that are not sort of heavy in infrastructure that can identify a use for the space. So we didn't want to predefine what those things are, but we've sort of looked at other processes that Kitchener and Brampton have used when they were in a similar situation. The community got together, got creative. In one situation, made an interactive public arts thing that you know is within the budgets that we proposed. So I would say it's a small process to work with the community to identify, because as Councillor Dudek said, it's sort of the heart of the community. It's not kind of the event space or things like that. Those traditionally happen down on the waterfront. So small process to identify, you know, what are some kind of light, quick, cheap things that can be done in that square to make it the public square that the community expected.
I appreciate the details. Thank you.
Councillor Elgar.
Thank you, Chair O'Meara. I guess, Jonathan, I was going to ask the same thing. What can you do with 35,000? Can you build something to say this is the Bronte Market Square? Is that the plan? Or are we going to spend it on consultants? Like, I'm just trying to understand.
If I can interject for a second, because Councillor McNeice has taken the ball on this one, and you know, in hindsight, he's not new, but he is. But in part of the negotiations we had, there were art decos that were supposed to go down the sides that the developer has just abandoned. There was trouble with the water fountains. The developer has just we were in litigation for years. It hasn't been to completion. There's a lot of things that haven't come to fruition, of infrastructure specialization that was supposed to happen that never came to fruition, and litigation is what it is. We're just left with that, and it's an unfinished product, I think, which needs to be finished to the way that it was always envisioned, and just never worked out that way, as some of these big things do, unfortunately. And yes, there are ideas we want to, ask the community what further things we can do, but there was a lot of infrastructure that was not finished and not completed that should have been done. And after litigation was done, everybody just sort of packed their baseball gloves and went home. And I think, unfortunately, as always is the case, the town's left holding the bag on this thing. And I don't think we're really in a position where we want to see that bag be held for a number of years going forward. And to that extent, and I didn't mean to cut you off, Councillor McNeese. I just thought I could shed a little light prior to what happened there on that. If you have anything to add, I apologize for jumping in.
Yeah, no, that's thank you, Councillor Mayor. That was great insight on the history of it. And I mean, to give some examples to Councillor Elgar, we're not expecting that everything would have to be new infrastructure. For example, we've got a development site that worked collaboratively with Sheridan and our historical society to create a mural. Stuff like that could potentially be moved to the public square, which will have some capital costs, but quite an efficient way of doing it instead of having to create something brand new. We're known for our Muskoka chairs. Some have envisioned, a couple of giant Muskoka chairs that would be sort of Instagrammable. So I don't sort of want to predetermine what those things are, but I don't think we need to spend a ton of money considering the pressure that we're under, but just a bit, I think, can make this a usable square, and that's what it was always intended to be in the heart of our community. So we're trying to be really efficient and not a ton of hard infrastructure, but there is some kind of lighter infrastructure that could go into the square that will really make it usable.
Okay, actually, I'm quite happy to hear that. My concern was that we hire a consultant to see what we should get, and I really have trouble with the money we pay for consultants, but you're working, it'll be more of just public input, and then physically we may see something, we'll see something at the end. So
yeah, we've made this a capital request so that we can see something, because like you said, more consultants talking about it's not gonna make it the heart of the community. So
thank you. Okay, okay, fine. I'm fine with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Elgar. And Mayor Burton, I know your hand was up. It's gone down though. If you want to just wave me off, that's fine. Otherwise, I'll go to Councillor Haslett-Thiel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councillor O'Meara and Councillor McNeese clarified it beautifully for me, and I see and I believe and I understand.
Sorry, Councillor Haslett-Thiel, over to you.
So most of my questions have been answered. The other one would be, are there any community benefit dollars left to assist you from some of the new developments coming into Bronte?
I don't believe we currently have any. I don't know if we can predetermine if there's some coming.
Yeah, I can jump in on that. We have
Sure.
about $700 and some odd thousand from the podium development at East Street and Lakeshore. But again, we won't get that money until they've reached a point where they get permitting, and we may or may not be years away from that. So, but that's the last legacy of the bonusing element that exists in our town, I do believe.
But there is there is community benefit other than the bonusing. I'm pleased to support it. It's important that there be a gathering space, and I actually really love that you're going to do a more personal public engagement to get to some decisions and bring it to life. So happy to support it.
Thank you very much, Councillor. So seeing no other questions right now, it's moved by Councillor McNeese. Are there any objections? Seeing none, that carries. Thank you very much for that, council colleagues, and I do appreciate your time tonight. If you give me just a minute to navigate between numerous screens about what the what the recommendation I need to move here is. So what I'm looking for, first off, is a motion that this committee recommend that the mayor's 2024 operating budget incorporate item F, which was that the 2024 overall property tax increase not exceed 4.5%, and that all other items be referred to the mayor for consideration. Councillor Duddick, I see your hand.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I
Mr.
thought I'd
Chair.
already given you a motion for that.
I apologize. I might. Sorry, Your Worship.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, it's Andrea. You've already
Andrea.
passed those motions.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So the motion I'm looking for is it's the operating, the capital items, and is that what I'm looking for?
No, Mr. Chair, you're all good because we passed those individually.
Okay, perfect. I apologize. There you go. I'm sorry, everyone. Drag you on that extra 30 seconds. There was a lot going on here, so I'm making sure we dot all our I's and cross all our T's as I'm alone in my basement. So with that, my council colleagues, I just want to take a moment. Sorry, Councilor Chisholm, your hand is up. You just have to unmute.
Councilor Mayor, I want to thank you for bringing us through this process. I know it is something new that that we're all experiencing, and you did one hell of a job. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. It doesn't work without great colleagues. And more importantly, I just want to thank the staff, not more importantly, but as important, I want to thank the staff for being nimble on their toes for all of this. Again, none of this happens with the staff. And it is, we're about halfway through the process, my council colleagues. It's on to the mayor now, and we have a lot of work still to do with our residents and working with the mayor. And I know we've had great conversations with the mayor so far, and we look forward to the next month to get us to a place where we can all sort of move forward. So thank you very much for that. And I don't have a gavel to bang, but we are adjourned. Thank you very much.